Storytime with Mr. Michael.
Hello, my friends. It's time for Chapter 3 of Frog and Toad Are Friends. This one is called The Lost Button. I'm very excited about this one. Okay, are you ready? A Lost Button. Toad and Frog went for a long walk. They walked across a large meadow. They walked in the woods. They walked along the river. At last they went back home to Toad's house. "No, drat," said Toad. "Not only do my feet hurt, but I have lost one of my buttons on my jacket." Oh no, do you see? Oh yeah. "Don't worry," said Frog. "We'll go back to all the places where we walked. We will soon find your button." They walked back to the large meadow. They began to look for the button in the tall grass. "Here's your button," cried Frog. "That is not my button," said Toad. "That button is black. My button was white." Toad put the button in his pocket. There's Toad. A sparrow flew down. "Excuse me," said the sparrow, "did you lose a button? I found one." "That is not my button," said Toad. "That button has 2 holes. My button had 4 holes." Toad put the button with 2 holes in his pocket. They went back to the woods and looked in the dark paths. "Here's your button," said Frog. "That is not my button," cried Toad. "That button is small. My button was big." Toad put the small button in his pocket. A raccoon came out from behind a tree. "I heard that you were looking for a button," he said. "Here is one that I just found." "That is not my button," wailed Toad. "That button is square. My button is round." Toad put the square button in his pocket. Frog and Toad went back to the river. They looked for the button in the mud. "Here's your button," said Frog. "That is not my button," shouted Toad. "That button is thin. My button was thick." There's the raccoon. And there they are by the river. Oh, look at the cattails. That's cool. Toad put the thin button in his pocket. He was very angry. He jumped up and down and he screamed, "The whole world is covered with buttons, and not one of them is mine." Toad ran home and slammed the door. There, on the floor, he saw his white, 4-holed, big, round, thick button. "Ow," said Toad. "It was here the whole time. What a lot of trouble I have made for Frog." Toad took all of the buttons out of his pocket. He took his sewing box down from the shelf. Toad sewed the buttons all over his jacket. The next day, Toad gave his jacket to Frog, and Frog thought it was beautiful. He put it on and jumped for joy, and none of the buttons fell off. Toad had sewed them on very well. That's the end of our chapter, guys. I like Frog hopping up and down. Yay! And there's Toad taking out all of his buttons and sewing them on his jacket very, very nicely. I love this story. It makes me think of all the times that I have lost something and I can't find it and I get very frustrated. And I have to take a moment and take a breath and say, okay, where did I leave it? I know I left it somewhere, and I always left it in a strange spot. Now, I'm sure this happens to everyone, but in the moment you get very frustrated, and that's okay. It's okay to be frustrated. All right, my friends, I will see you all later. I hope you enjoyed Chapter 3 of Frog and Toad, and I'll see you next time. I care about you. Goodbye for now.
Storytime with Mr. Michael.